Hi guys, it's Dr. Pam and I'm here with today's burning question from Kathy. She asks about high pressure pasteurization or HPP in the raw food industry. Does it change the nutrient profile? I'm going to answer that, but I'm also going to actually talk about a bigger issue that affects everybody, whether you feed raw food or not. This is a piece that you absolutely need to know. So that comes. Let me talk about the high pressure processing first. This is a cold pasteurization methodology where they take prepackaged food and submit it to extensive pressures. We're talking 87,000 pounds per square inch. So if you think about the pressure where the Titanic lays on the bottom of the ocean, multiply that times 15. That's the kind of pressure that they have. Why do they do that? Because it kills microorganisms and then also prevents bacterial and other microorganism binding on the other side when you open it up. It was first used in the human industry in the 1990s when they realized that we have a higher need for prepackaged foods, our higher want, and people were not eating as much fresh as prepackaged. And so by exerting this pressure, they gave it a longer shelf life. Shelf life is everything when it comes to these types of foods, right? So it came onto the scene in 2007 along with Stella and Chewy's. They were blazing a course with a raw food and they started out with HPP. It was a visionary move. So at any rate, at that time, there was an explosion of raw food on the market, prepackaged raw food, I should say. We'd been making our own raw foods for quite some time. So this is prepackaged raw food. And the FDA was not happy, and neither was the commercial processed pet food industry. So that began kind of a targeting. And at that time, they started doing consumer testing where they would take these particular raw food companies, they would take a sample, they would leave it out on the counter for like 8 hours, and then they would basically culture it and see if they had microbes. So, of course, anybody who feeds raw food knows we don't leave it out. We use good housekeeping skills. You wouldn't leave your chicken on the counter for 8 hours. I mean, that would be insane. So we don't do that. We have very strict guidelines on how we manage with raw food. At any rate, so that was where it all began. In 2011, there was an act that was passed. It's called the Food Safety Modernization Act that gave the FDA the power to test all foods for the microbes, the bacteria, yeast, and fungus. All foods, not just raw food. Unfortunately, they've used that to target the raw food industry. And what they do is they do the same types of processes. They just ran another raw food company out of business by leaving the sample on the counter for 8 hours before testing. It's absolutely insane. So at any rate, at that time, the pet food market, the raw food market started realizing, uh-oh, we're getting targeted. So then HPP became a bigger and bigger piece of the market. And so where we are now is that we're still battling that. Now, this is the piece that you need to know. Why is it important for people who don't feed raw food? Because that act was set in motion for all pet food, but they don't test commercial processed food. They don't test the dry. They don't test the canned. Why is that important for you? That's important because there's no accountability. And these companies don't get tested until somebody dies. So the recent recalls for the Hill Science Diet, the recalls that we've had in the past for the melamine scandal, all of those waited to test the food until somebody died, all right? Now, why again is that significant? That doesn't happen super often, right? Here's the deal. Did you see yesterday's post that we had about the exposed pet food secrets? It's about aflatoxin. Mycotoxin, by industry experts say this. This isn't me just talking. The industry experts say this. Mycotoxin is the #1 most serious problem in contamination of the grain products that go into processed pet food, all right? And that study that I cited in that post, 76% of the ingredients that go for the pet food are contaminated with mycotoxin. Significance, it's the most carcinogenic natural substance known to man. So in high amounts, like in the Diamond pet food years ago, in high amounts, it kills liver toxicity and death. In lower amounts, it accumulates in tissue until it causes disease. How many of you have had a dog that was doing great and then all of a sudden we developed hepatitis? All of a sudden we developed kidney. Have you asked yourself why? Most people say, my dog has this disease, but have you ever asked yourself why? So back to Kathy's question, does it change the nutrient content? Yes, it does to some degree. To what degree, we don't know. There's not enough evidence. There's not enough science behind it yet. But I can tell you that it denatures some enzymes. Yes, it does apparently manage to keep the nutrient profiles of the vitamin, minerals, and the protein complexes, which we like. So when it comes, Kathy, to whether or not I use HPP or not, it is a place that we are going to have to go to because the industry is being targeted by the FDA. So I would much rather feed a raw food from an industry that uses HPP than to feed a kibble that won't even test its food. Okay? Now, do I think every dog's a raw food dog? No, not every food, and every dog is a raw food dog. You have to pick the diet that matches your patient. But when I say raw food, think about what that also means. It means anything sort of outside the raw food, freeze-dried, air-dried, something that starts as raw food. Okay? They're going to start targeting that too. So keep that in mind. All right? That's my question for today. I hope it brought you some information. Have a great day.